could grab the agenda, it's down on the table just inside the doorway, and find yourself a seat.
Get going. Go.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock.
You're welcome.
All right, welcome everyone. My name is Judy Wahlberg and I'm the town clerk here in Woodstock. And thank you. And I'd like to read the call for the meeting. Town of Woodstock, notice of adjourned special town meeting and referendum, May 3rd, 2023. The special town meeting of the electors and citizens qualified to vote in town meetings of the town of Woodstock, Connecticut will be held at Woodstock Middle School, 147B, Route 169, in the town of Woodstock, Connecticut, on May 3rd, 2023, at 7 p.m. for the following purpose. Item 1, to choose a moderator. Item 2, to consider and vote upon the following resolution. Resolve to reinstate the ordinance known as Prop 46 as adopted at adjourned special town meeting on December 8th, 1979. Item 3, to adjourn. Please take note that pursuant to Section 7-7 of the Connecticut General Statutes, the Woodstock Board of Selectmen has on their own initiative removed the foregoing Item 2 for submission to the voters of the town of Woodstock by referendum to be held on May 16th, 2023 from 12 noon to 8 p.m. at the Woodstock Town Hall. The vote will be yes or no votes on tabulator machines. Absentee ballots are available at the office of town clerk. Dated at Woodstock, Connecticut, this 19th day of April, and it's signed Woodstock Board of Selectmen, John V. Swan Jr. First Selectman, Chandler Paquette Selectman, Kate McDonald Selectman. Thank you. I'd like to open the floor up for a moderator. Yes.
I would nominate Ed Higgins.
Ed Higgins, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Mike and Dave. And are there any other nominations? And there being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Evening, everybody. Tonight, we're here to discuss or take comments about the matter that's going to be put before a referendum in terms of the reinstatement of Proposition 46. So what we need, I think, to start is we need somebody to make a motion to approve in a second, and then we'll take comments and discussion, and then when everyone's had a chance to say whatever they'd like to say, we'll adjourn the meeting, and then the vote will take place on May 16th. It's from noontime till 8 p.m. Before we get started, I just want, because one of the questions occurred to me, and I'd asked Judy, was about this matter has obviously just been voted upon a short while ago, and now there's another consideration of it, and the selectman did ask the town attorney, Richard Roberts, about whether it was proper, and he did reply back to the town, and Rich indicated, he said, the town meeting is a legislative body and can revisit the same issue at any time. Administrative decisions by boards and commissions may have different limitations on their ability to reverse prior decisions, but I'm not aware of any such restriction on a town meeting. And he also went on to say that the petition calls for an action that is a proper purpose for a town meeting, and I also think the intent is clear as to what the requested action is. So please let me know if you have any other questions. So I think that question about whether it was proper to bring it up after just being considered was asked and answered by the town attorney. So to open it up, would someone want to make a motion on the matter?
Evan McHugh, I'll make a motion to adjourn the, well, not, you're asking for a motion to adjourn the meeting?
No, a motion just to approve.
I guess we want to talk about it.
We'll take that too.
Yeah, we'll take the motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Could I have your name?
Evan McHugh, Applin Hill.
Evan?
Evan McHugh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Is there a second? Sir? You know?
Dana Chapman.
Okay, David Chapman. And all we'll ask is for folks that would like to make comments, if they could just come up here and take the microphone, because we are broadcasting, I think. Is it Zoom or broadcast? I don't know the term. Live stream, okay. Is there anybody that would like to start? Anybody have any comments they'd like to make?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
Hi folks, my name is Dana Chapman. I've been a resident of this town for 50 years. And the reason that I support this motion to reinstate Proposition 46 is because this beautiful town that we love has been made this way by this cap and spending. And a lot of people don't realize what the median income in this town is. In South Woodstock, it's just a little over $54,000. And in Woodstock Valley, it's $94,000, which gives our median income a little over $74,000. A lot of people cannot afford the taxes that are going to be levied against us. And that for some people, that just means that, hey, I don't get a vacation. And for some people, it means, hey, I can't pay my mortgage. So I don't feel that this is fair. I don't feel that the other side, when they went through, we only had 3.5 days to get absentee ballots. All right, at a time when not a lot of people were here. So that's another reason that I supported coming back to this again. You know, a lot of people have a difference of opinion. That's how I feel. People keep asking me, you know, what's your reason? Those are my reasons. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Dana. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment? Might be a quick meeting. Jean?
My name is Jean Pillow. I live on Smith Road. I'm a resident of the town for about 25 years, and I've seen what the spending cap has done to the town in a negative way. I have seen the town highway foreman making tough decisions about what he could afford under the restrictions under Prop 46 when we needed to put a salt shed together, and the Bennett's cows were dying because the groundwater was contaminated. But every time he put that in the budget, it had to get scrubbed out because Prop 46 wouldn't allow that expense. I've seen degradation of programming at the school system, especially in our public school system, and I have seen reductions in road maintenance where we can't keep up the roads the way we need to, and I'm opposed to reinstating Prop 46.
Thank you, Jean. Anybody else?
Thank you. I am Melissa Fox. I have not been in Woodstock my entire life. My husband and I and my family have been here a little bit over 10-ish years now. We came to Woodstock because we wanted to be in a community where our children could grow up, get a great education, and hopefully where we could live until we retired, and you know that we could basically spend our entire lives here. As somebody who has lived outside of Woodstock, I can tell you that throughout you know, hearing people talk about Woodstock, it was always, if you want to be in a good school system, go to Woodstock. I work in our schools. I substitute teach. Substitute teachers do not get paid a lot of money. I could substitute teach every single day. If I were to substitute between the high school, the middle school, and the elementary school, I am only brave enough to substitute at the elementary school. But I could be there every day. So I'm in the schools a lot. My children started in the school in kindergarten. I have seen programs get cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. Here's why I don't think that I feel badly that we're having to do this again. I think everybody has had the same amount of time we all had the same opportunity to vote the first time it came up. Obviously, you know, it's a democratic process. It's come up again. We're here again. But you know, I can tell you that we can't really afford to have our taxes go up either. However, I feel like it's only fair that as voting members of this town, we get presented with a budget and we can either pass it or not pass it. I don't think it's fair that we get budgets that have to be so scaled down in order to meet 46 that was made in 1979. Things are totally different now than they were before. And more than anybody, I have a daughter who has special needs. You know, I have a master's degree in social work. I could be working at a professional job where I was getting paid a lot more money than what I'm getting paid as a substitute. But I don't. I stay in the schools. I do what I have to do. We scrimp, we save. We have to sacrifice too. You know, sacrificing is not something that we're strangers to. But I feel like we should at the very least, have an opportunity to vote on a fair budget. And, you know, all of the people that I know in Woodstock, we're all intelligent people. We all want the best for our town. Nobody wants, you know, our town to crumble. But with Prop 46, it's crumbling. And so, you know, I know that the voters in my family, you know, will be voting to, you know, to reject having Prop 46 coming back again. And that's why I have faith in us as a community to be able to vote on a budget that's fair and, you know, at least gives us a chance to, instead of keep us from going deeper in a hole, bring us up a little bit so that we can get back to being that school system and that community that people want to come to. If we don't have people wanting to come here because they're hearing that the class sizes are you know, through the roof and the programs are cut, how do you not have a librarian in an elementary school? How do you not, you know, we want our kids to be, you know, we want them to be technologically, you know, equal to other communities, but we don't have anybody teaching our kids how to use the technology that they have. You know, we're cutting programs, which I realize has to happen sometimes, but when you're cutting to the point where you just have basically a skeleton crew at the schools and the fire departments and the rescue and, you know, the town services are all having to get cut, I just feel like we need to have a little more level playing field.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Megan Bardmore, Stone Hill Road. The reason why I am going to vote to reject the restoration is I would like the town to have a chance to explore generating new revenue. The Board of Education is not currently considering whether it can bring in revenue from expanding preschool, which was something that they were thinking about because they don't know what's going to happen in 2 weeks. We need to give them a chance to actually look at this. There's also an ad hoc committee that the Board of Finance has put together that is supposed to be looking at different revenue streams. They're supposed to be looking at different ways to, I believe it was the senior tax freeze that was brought up to the Board of Selectmen. They're supposed to look at that. They're supposed to be looking at other sorts of tax relief. We need to allow them to do that. The boards have tried to do this before. I know the Board of Education, when I was on the Board of Ed, had looked at this, and basically we were told that if we brought in this extra revenue, the town would certainly appreciate it, but it would go into the general fund. It didn't go to the Board of Ed to directly go to the Board of Ed's budget to offset some of this cost because of the limits of Proposition 46. So we need to allow the town chance to do this. That's why I'm going to reject the restoration. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Anybody else wish to speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. I also support the elimination of Prop 46. It has resulted in driving our schools per student spending down to 164th out of 169 towns. And the losses, as indicated by Ms. Fox, are really disheartening. No library media specialists, loss of the computer program in the elementary school, loss of gifted and talented in both schools, loss of funded sports, on and on. Woodstock actually ranks at the 51st percentile in median household income. We are average for the state. And yet, our equalized mill rate is 147th, almost near the bottom. And as I mentioned, our per student spending is scraping the bottom. So let's give voters a chance. Let's give voters the ability to take a look at a budget and determine what they value and what they wish to retain or what they don't wish to retain. I think, and let's encourage people to engage so that they take a good look at what the budget is proposing. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Anybody else wish to speak? Evan? I'm sorry. Get you next, sir.
Evan McHugh, I live in Apple Hill. I think it's important to realize that, you know, the law that we're asking to put back in, and I respect your opinion, is archaic. It's from 1979. I've been in high tech for 25 years, and some of the very technologies that we're asking our schools to teach our children didn't even exist back then. And I know on the opposite side, so I'm in favor of rejecting this a second time around. And I know that there's a concern among our farming and agricultural community that this is going to unduly tax them. And I empathize with that. But the budget that the good government of Woodstock has put together is asking us to consider a 0.6 mill rate increase. If the farmers are worried about that, go complain to the state and the federal governments about why your crops and the cost of milk is what it is. I don't think that the school needs to be disenfranchised, and the services. And I think if you take the government aside, if you take Jay aside and you ask him, what are the services that are going to get liquidated, they're going to get cut? If we have to continue down this path of not having a proper budget every year, from a Proposition 46 perspective, do you want to live in a town without emergency medical services? As I recall, he legally has to provide us fire service, but we may be on our own if you end up having a heart attack. You want to wait 30 minutes for Putnam to come out and find you? These are some of the things that we need to consider. God forbid somebody's out there working on their tractor and they get caught in the power takeoff and they lose an arm, and you're stuck trying to call 911. How are you going to get service? These are some of the concerns that people need to consider. And I think, you know, there's no computer program. We rank at the bottom of funding. There's going to come a point in time where this is going to get out, and the facade of Woodstock having a good school district in the elementary and middle school is going to fall down, and people are going to stop wanting to move here. And then real estate values are going to collapse. And then people are going to wonder why the grand list goes down in valuation, because people will move out or houses will become abandoned. And we're going to be in a vicious cycle. If you don't like Prop 46, then let's have an honest discussion of building a new proposition if we're worried about unfettered government spending. But a 0.6 mill rate increase is a very small increase as an investment in our future as a town to maintain why people come here in the first place, why you've chosen to live here for 50 years, why you've chosen to live here and establish roots. I moved here recently. I lived in Thompson for 24 years. I came here because I wanted my kids to have a better future than what they would have in Thompson. And I realize we may disagree, and there's people on both sides that may disagree with what I'm saying, but the fact of the matter is, we're talking about reinstating an archaic law from 1979. I'm 46, going to be 47 this year. I was 3 when this law was passed. A lot's changed since then. If you look at the pace of why we need to continue to invest in our children, it is to maintain a competitive advantage against China and the rest of the world. And the fact that we don't offer basic levels of education around having a library, a media program, a computer program, bothers me. Because from my perspective, we need to be able to teach these fundamental skills. Now, yeah, some of you will argue the kids learn all this stuff by themselves, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at the type of jobs that these kids could go get if they were to pursue these high-tech capabilities, these are jobs that will pay them $150,000 a year coming out of college. Some of them will erase their student debt. These are jobs that we should be encouraging our kids to go after. And that's not to say that there's nothing wrong with going into the trades. In fact, if I had to do it over again, I'd go into the trades. But I say that by saying that what we're talking about today is reinstating a law from 1979 that has effectively hamstrung the government. Our elected officials have put together a budget in probably the most conservative fashion. If you drive 10 miles that way, Thompson's considering a mill rate increase of 8%. I don't think we need to take money on whether or not that budget's going to fail. This government has put together a budget that is only looking to increase by 0.6 over what Prop 46's mill rate would increase of 1.56%, or 1.56 mills. It's not a lot of money. Not when we break it down per month. Now, you know what? We could have a conversation about whether or not the people in my generation who are older represent the past or the future. But this fundamentally comes down to whether or not we have a vision for what this town wants to be going forward. Do we want to allow it to become overrun by people that are moving in from New York? Or Thompson? But you know what, sir? I pay taxes, and I pay my fair share of taxes.
I know you do.
And I think we need to look at, no, I do pay my fair share. I appreciate it. We all pay our fair share of taxes. But I think what we need to consider is, if you don't like Prop 46, if you want to bring it back, let's bring back something better. Don't bring back this. Because I think we haven't had an opportunity to have a conversation of, does Woodstock, do we not believe, do we not trust Jay, who's lived here his entire life, who, you know, we've elected him repeatedly to put together a budget across both the Board of Finance, the Board of Ed, and the Board of Selectmen that is conservative and that makes sense for the town to provide the services that we need. I hate to say it, but inflation's up, what is it, 7%? Stuff costs money. You have to ask yourself whether or not you want the services that the town provides. Now, some of you may not consume any services, but you're here tonight, so you obviously do consume some. You want your transfer station permits to be $300, $400 a year? They've got to get the money out of somewhere. And they can control what that costs. And they don't have to go to a vote to change the transfer station. And I get it. Some of you guys work on your own cars, you mow your own lawn, you do all of that stuff, and I appreciate that. But we're talking about putting back in place a law from 1979. Why don't we have a solid conversation and a debate if we don't like that law to put in a better law? One that better reflects what we're looking to do as a town, if we're afraid of unfettered government spending. But today, what we're talking about is a 1.56 mill rate increase. One that provides a modest increase. Yes, I'm asking you to vote in favor of paying slightly more in your taxes at a local level. But if you look at what we're trying to do for for the children that live here, and for the services that we all consume, including me, who's one steak dinner away from a heart attack, I might need to call an ambulance. I'd like to know that there might be services around here. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Sir, you,
Hi, my name's Gary Dawson. I think 46 should stay. If it needs to be amended in some way, fine, then we should do that. That was one of the questions on the ballot last time around that nobody seemed to pay any attention to. I understand the school system and the town of Woodstock and how much more money that they need. But I worked 48 years. I retired last year. Never figured that the economy would be as expensive as it is to live now. Never mind an increase in taxes, which I have a hard time paying myself now. So if it goes up more money, then we're all, I understand that the school system I understand it's needed everywhere. But you can't get blood from a stone. If you don't have the money to pay, what do? Do you pick up and leave town? I've lived here for 30 years. I built my home here. I take a lot of pride in it. And the people that I associate with. I'm just trying to figure out a way to do this that's feasible for all of us. And I don't think that's too much to ask. It's just, if you can't pay anymore, you can't pay anymore. It's that simple. Where do you get the money if you can't pay your taxes? Next thing you know, you're down the street. I don't want to be down the street. I've been there for 30 years. I feel bad for a lot of the people that can't afford to pay it. I have talked to a lot of people recently, and a lot of them just said, we can't afford to pay the taxes we got now, never mind more. We gotta get the money somewhere else. I don't know where or how we can do it, but there's gotta be a way of bringing more money into the town to help the school system and everybody else to make it beneficial. That's really all I have to say. If you can't afford to pay more taxes, you can't afford to pay more taxes. Am I gonna be penalized for that? Probably. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to make a comment? Or-
Jessica Weaver Booth, I want to address something you just said, which is, has been brought up by Megan. 46 prevents revenue. It prevents our town from finding other ways for paying for the schools. And that is why we need to keep it off the books, so that we can create other ways of paying for the schools and paying for our other services in our town and keeping our town going.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Ray Morgan, Hoy Road. Guys, you guys would speak, I'm not a public speaker, so work with me here. 46, so coming in town, what 46 does, as me, I look at it, I'm a tradesman, it does not give me a honest figure. Budget to run the town, run the schools, run everything, you're limited. So if you're gonna say, okay, my house, if I, there's so much what 46 is not doing, it does not give me an honest figure. Now, by taking 46 off the books, which I think 46 should be off the books, we're still voting. You guys, you get a vote for 46, you get a vote on the budget. I've been following the whole budget right from day one, following everything you got. You guys gotta vote. What 46 does for me says, if I got 46, I go home, sit on the couch, put my feet up. You know what? I don't have to worry about Tom. There's no money, right? I got a house. I gotta put the shingles on the house. I gotta do that. I got upkeep. I gotta expend. But it does me no good to have a house when I come down off the driveway. I got a pothole because we don't have money in the town to take care of the pothole. Okay? But it's real simple. By getting rid of 46, you didn't take it away from me. I can still vote on the budget. I can say, yeah, no way, I can't afford that. We're gonna have to go back at the book. But by leaving 46 on, I'm never gonna get that pothole. We can't afford it. I'm not getting a true price. It's simple. I don't understand. It limits it. I don't know how we can do it. All right. Yeah, that's it. There were so many different points. But I'm not speaking. There you go.
You did a good job, thank you. Anybody else like to make a comment, or? Sir?
Sorry, I'm not sure.
It's okay.
My name's Jeremy Serwer, 11 years here in town. I live on Prospect Street. I'm not gonna say what I'm for or against. I wanna speak to 3 or 4 points that were made that there are counterpoints to and/or are not very helpful. The small increase in the mill rate. As somebody pointed out in a letter to the Villager last week, taxes are not just the mill rate. We've all had pretty outrageous increases in our assessments as a function of the reval. So the focus on rejecting the reestablishment of 46 on the basis of a low mill rate increase, it's a bit of a canard. That's a duck, in case anybody doesn't remember. I was a language major, sorry. Point number 2, if you're not happy with the rejection of 46, you can still vote against the budget. Quacks like a duck. That's an all or nothing proposition. 46 was put in as a stopgap measure to control spending, period. There's a lot of people in this country who would like to see that on a federal basis. So the fact that you can vote against the budget, you stand a lot greater chance reinstating 46 than you do winning a no vote against the budget. Real estate values, relationship to schools, et cetera, et cetera. Don't pounce on me, but I've dealt with this one for a long time. I came out of Boston. Guess what you hear in the burbs in Boston? Good schools create good real estate values. Full disclosure, I'm a licensed real estate broker. I'm in commercial real estate. I work nationwide. I'm licensed in Connecticut and Massachusetts. In 46 years in the Boston area and 11 years here, I have never seen a study that proved that. I don't disagree with the logic. The logic is excellent. Why wouldn't you want to move to a place that has great schools? And if you do, wouldn't that improve real estate values? I'm not so sure it's that black and white. And if anybody can come up with a study, I'd love to see it. I have just one last question to perhaps put out there. I love the idea of bring something better. The gentleman spoke about that. I mean, if you hate 46, join the ad hoc committee. I spoke to I don't know if she's here, I spoke to the chairperson of that committee after the meeting last night. They have some great initiatives for raising revenue and or discounting to seniors, various other things as well, that can make a lot of sense in the future. Maybe those are alternatives to 46. One last thought, and I guess I pointed out in terms of a question. If 46 is so archaic, and I'm not so sure any cap is archaic, you can just disagree with the cap. The fact that it's been around for 79 years mails, it did some good things. So the question is, if it's been around, let's do the math.
44 years.
44 years, thanks. If it's been around for 44 years, why, even after 3 years, much less 4 or 5, 80s, 90s, why didn't the schools just rot? Why do people still want to come to Woodstock for its schools if they've done nothing but erode because of a drop in spending per pupil, which is another canard. It's not just a question of hard dollars, it's a question of where you put the dollars. Why do people still want to move to Woodstock for the schools after 44 years if Prop 46 was that bad? Just putting questions out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
I'd like to respond actually to that question. Well, first of all, I think you make a really good point about Prop 46, and that, when you said that you're sure that a lot of people would want the federal government to have that. So then my question would be, if anybody has a really good reason why there are not more places that have Prop 46. If it's so great at keeping things down, but at the same time, that's great. Lower taxes is great, but, having the money to be able to provide the services to our schools and to our town services, and to our roads, and to everything else, I think is great also. So I would be interested in knowing why there haven't been more towns, especially in this area, that haven't tried to adopt a similar proposition to R46. I genuinely would like to know that. I also would like to address, because this is something, look, I'm in the schools a lot, so I know I'm always like school, 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 but the bottom line is, I don't think we're talking about our schools are rotting, because I don't think they're rotting, but I will tell you as somebody who is sort of on the outside looking in, because I'm not a full-time teacher, our teachers are absolutely amazing. And they do a lot with a little bit. But you can only do so much with less and less and less. And I have known multiple people who have left our school departments, our schools, our teachers, who have left, good teachers, good classroom aides, good TAs who have left because they cannot afford to keep working, and their mental health has absolutely tanked. Because you're dealing with societal issues. We all know things are more difficult now than they were in 1979. We all know that, right? There's more societal issues. There's more things going on. There's more kids who have needs. We just went through the pandemic. Whatever side you were on, whether you thought we should have stayed open or you thought we should have closed everything down, whatever side of that you're on, our kids have suffered from that, and they are so needy. And if you think that, throwing money, I've heard people say you can't throw money at the problem, you can't buy a good education. We need to have good teachers. We need to keep good teachers. And that's where you're going when you have towns that are paying their teachers more, that are having smaller class sizes, and that are providing resources for their kids who are so stressed out. Teachers are going to leave. They're going to leave. They're leaving. They are leaving. We just had an amazing classroom assistant who just left. And I can tell you that having had conversations with this person, I know that they had it up to here with the lack of resources and the lack of services to our kids. And so my question is, I get that we want to keep taxes low. I want to keep taxes low. I pay taxes too. We have a budget that in my family that is absolutely stretched beyond, I don't know where we're going to get the money to do it. But do I want to say, let's keep this, that we've had, look, if somebody has a better suggestion on what to do, come with it, present it. I know a lot of people don't like social media. I go on Facebook. I know I've talked to some people who are here tonight on Facebook and our local pages, right? So present a different idea, but sticking with something that's not working anymore, I haven't heard a better idea. So I know it's either we do this or we don't do it, and that's all we've been talking about, but so who has a better idea? Who has a better idea? Bring it to a meeting. Bring a petition that says, look, here's the idea I have that we could use to keep taxes low but still fund our town services. This is my idea. Bring it. I just haven't seen it in any of the conversations that we've had. I'm willing. Why do I think that Prop 46 has been around since 1979? Because I think that we have a lot of people who have not been invested in voting it out. I think we're starting with social media, and we're having that kind of stuff where people are starting to become more aware of what's going on. It took me a couple of years to even understand what Prop 46 meant. But I think we're starting to have conversations, and so you have people who are coming forward saying, is this why we can't get an honest budget that we can look at and say, this is going to fund our town the way that it needs to be funded? So if there's a different way to do this, I absolutely would consider that. But the way that we're doing it and bringing back, and I didn't go to the meeting yesterday. I have an elderly father who's ill and I couldn't make it. And I don't know if it was talked about, but, you know, we have to pay for, you know, services when we have these votes. You know, and that's money that we're gonna have to spend. I mean, how are we gonna keep doing it and doing it and doing it? And I've had conversations with people who said, well, this is how they got it passed the first time. They just kept bringing it and bringing it and bringing it until you had people that were just like, I can't deal with it anymore, I'm not going to vote on this again. I don't want us to have something like that in this town. I have come to love this town. I love being here. I don't ever want to leave. You know, but I don't want to have something that's not working for us, and it's not working for us. And so, I mean, bring something different, and we can all look at it and talk about it. I would love to do that, but I haven't seen that yet. So, hopefully somebody can do that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to make a comment?
Thanks, Dana Chapman again. Well, what I would like to say is, with Proposition 46, that's a safety net. You know, when you go up with a budget and come up with a bunch of wants and needs and put them on a piece of paper, they can be anything. All right, what that is, what Proposition 46 is, it's a cap. We can't spend more than we have. In your household, can you spend more than what you have? In your household, can you spend more than what you have? In your household, with your pothole in your roof, if you didn't have money for the pothole in the roof, what would happen? The pothole in the roof would stay. That's what would happen. And unfortunately, that we do have to cut some services, and we do have to live like that, all right? And I don't see getting rid of this doing us any favors. And I see this opening up big doors in the future for us to fail, all right? Right now, the state is proposing another 7.5% increase. So if we had that on top of our budget and had a 15% increase, where would you be? Who would you be then? Our American dollar is tanking. Now China's dollar is taking over in the Middle East. What do you think is going to happen there? We've had 3 major banks fail in the last 3 months. And we're all here squabbling about we need 50 more cents for this or that. We have one thing here to protect us. It would be very foolish to get rid of it at this time in our country and in our history. All right, and that's got nothing to do with how many computers or this or that in schools we have. I mean, you got a beautiful school, the lights work, people show up, the buses show up. All right, there's a lot of things where I can't get things at my job and I have to make it work. And unfortunately, that's the way life is. We have to make it work. And you can't come to me and tell me, well, you need to pay me more money for what I want. My answer to that is no. I don't have the money to pay you. And there's a cap here that protects each and every one of us, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, what your income is. It says we only have this many things in town. This is what we have. This is what we can afford. What's wrong with that? Well, when you say, well, we need more money, that means, okay, well, we got to get it from somewhere. Well, that's your pocket, your pocket, your pocket, and that's where everything goes up. And I'm sorry that, people don't want to hear that fact that there isn't enough money to go around and you can't have, everything you want. I can't have it, you can't have it, everybody here can. And I do feel at this time, you look around the world, 3 major banks, 3 of the biggest banks failing since March. Where do you think that's going to bring us, right? The petrodollar going down the tank and China taking over. And I see people rolling their eyes, but hey, listen, when you're banging on my door looking for food, and you sat here, trying to shove it up my rear end about Proposition 46, do you think I'm going to be very receptive when you show up? Come on, folks. This is what we have. This is what we have to deal with.
Thank you. Somebody who hasn't spoke?
Hi, I'm Christine Lessig. I've lived in Woodstock for almost 40 years. I thought last evening at the annual town meeting was the first time that we really saw our Board of Selectmen, our Board of Finance, our Board of Ed really working together. They've got a budget where people were at their wants, they looked at it, they cut it down, and they presented us a budget that they felt could meet our needs. Yeah, it's gonna go up, but it's reasonable. And I was so impressed to see that bipartisan support of people really working together because they care about this town. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Anybody else who hasn't spoken? No, sir? Maybe next.
Thank you. My
My name's Dan O'Hare, I live on Pond Factory Road. A couple times, it's been said, we've got to get some money from somewhere else, okay? Our first selectman did a great job last night. We went through the list, it was thoughtful, you had a whole lot of wants, and you went through and delineated all the way down to $200 and $100 in cutting budgets, and went through the whole thing. That was a thoughtful process. And what it did is it gave us as a town the ability to say we can make decisions intelligently about where our monies go. And Prop 46 is a thing that is a restrictor plate, but it stifles and does not allow for the flexibility to put money where the town and the individuals feel it needs to be. So my understanding is that it doesn't give the flexibility to get services to the school system in a manner in which we need that, and that should be a higher priority because of whatever the constraints are on that law. And that to me is something that is constraining, and it's unfair. If the school board of education is standing still, waiting to figure out how to raise revenue or to try to start a preschool program and raise money that way, it's craziness. A quality preschool program that the school would charge for brings back 17 to 1. It's proven throughout the country. A quality preschool program, for every dollar invested, $17 comes back to the community in mental health with students in elementary school and middle school that do not have special needs because they're taken care of early. Okay, and the fact that the school board that is constrained by that old model of Prop 46 doesn't allow us to be agile, to be able to look for other places to get money to take care of services. Okay, so that's one example. The status quo of where are we going to get more services? I spoke up at previous meetings. We can't just look at what's presently here. I spoke last night and I said, you know, half mile by half mile, and no one corrected me on that. As far as that's the only place where industrial development is allowed to be, and the town is over 63 square miles. And if we're going to look for other places for revenue, for a tax base, for businesses, where are we going to do it? The status quo, we are a bucolic area, but farming industry is an industry. Okay, if we're going to look for industry in retail, we have to ask ourselves, well, where are we going to get that other base? And if we can get a tax base other than our own mill rates and our old homes, then that will modify and soften that curve on the demands of our own homes and our tax rates. So we have to, Prop 46 doesn't allow that. It doesn't allow that for all of us to be free thinkers and look at the considered thought and energy that this town and our town leaders put into that budget in the last few weeks. So for me, Prop 46 itself doesn't do the job. If we can talk about, you know, managing budgets, let's do it with a clean slate. Tabula rasa. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, I'm Rick McDonald. So I have 4 quick points. The first is there was a point raised about the state raising the taxes, and that was addressed last night. I think that's the 70 to 75%. Do you want to speak to that? That was raised. We just talked about it last night.
Did you have a question on that, or?
Well, I was gonna say what you said last night, but instead of me saying what you said, I thought maybe you could say it again. I mean, I can say what you said.
If you get it wrong, Michael, come up.
All right. So the Board of Finance chair last night, sitting right here, this question was raised, and he said, yes, there is a proposal in the state to raise from 70 to 75% the basis at which the property taxes are set. And so that is true, that's something that may happen. But the very clear answer was, if that happens, the mill rate will be adjusted down.
Correct.
So that it is flat. Now is that correct?
That's
So there
yes.
is that happening, but that would not be a tax increase to the citizens of Woodstock.
Next year. And it wouldn't take effect until next year
Next
anyway.
year.
And, right, but it would, but then,
But we would adjust the mill rate to match the same rate of income as what we have at the current mill rate based on 70%.
right. So that was just one point I wanted to raise. The second was, you know, another point that was raised was about, you know, if we don't have money, we can't spend it, and Prop 46 says this is what we have to spend. Well, but Prop 46 doesn't tell us how much money we have to spend. It just says, here's a cap. And it's fairly arbitrary. When Prop 46 was created, my understanding is, it was named because the mill rate was 46. Right? I mean, like, that's crazy. Right? I mean, that's more than twice, right, what we're talking about for next year. Right? What's the proposed mill rate for next year?
2241.
2241. So more than twice that. Right? So that's one point. So it's not the same realm. And then the last point I wanted to make was, there was another question about, you know, do we trust the Board of Selectmen? And I trust some of the selectmen. But it's not about whether you trust the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Ed. It's about whether you trust the citizens of Woodstock and the voters of Woodstock. If it's too high, vote no. Like, that's the solution. That's what every other town does. If you like it, vote yes. If it's too high, vote no. If you think it's too low, yeah, maybe you risk it and vote no, but I wouldn't suggest that. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else hasn't spoken? Sir?
John Lugos, on Woodstock Road. It doesn't really matter how long I've been here. I'm a registered voter. I want to thank folks for having this streaming tonight, because I just got out of work about an hour ago. I work in Hartford, so it took me an hour to get here. And I wasn't going to come. I was going to just sit down and try to relax tonight, but I heard a lot of people kind of speak from the heart about their concerns, whether Prop 46 is in or out. I'm going to do the same thing. So I've been a single parent for the whole time that my kids have been in the school system here in Woodstock, and it's been a real struggle for me to pay my taxes every year. But one of the reasons I moved here was because I knew that eventually they'd be going to Woodstock Academy, and I knew that in my experience, some real caring teachers in the in elementary and middle school, and I hope that they can stick around. But most of what I feel about this is I want the ability to vote purely on what those numbers are for the budget. You know, my parents both served in World War II. They from the start, I remember them telling me how important it was to vote. They would bring me into the voting booth, and we used to have the old mechanical ones, and they'd always say how important that is and what that right means. We talk about safety nets. Well, honestly, that is our safety net. If voting is not the safety net, I mean, what is? So it's really important to me that we can now vote for the budget. And the budget that's up may not pass. But I've been, you know, sometimes the only one at some of these finance meetings and so forth, and that's what's been limiting us. My two kids, one of them is just a superstar and you know, did wonderfully all the way through. The other one really struggled. And he did not have, quite frankly, the kind of support I wish he did, because it was the paraprofessionals that we were cutting year after year. And I'm not blaming that on the middle school, I'm not blaming that on anyone, but for the fact that there wasn't the funding for it. We have put our own challenges on the backs of our kids here. And that's not cool, that's not right. And I've been talking about this for years now, and finally, I think people are starting to listen. It's important to vote. It's, you know, people have given their lives. I have a friend who gave his life because of what this country is about. We have the ability to vote on a budget. Let's do that. Everybody else does, it's cool. Nobody else needs these shields to say that you're not gonna, listen, I pay my taxes late every year, because it's a struggle. And my house looks like crap right now, because I can't afford to get it painted, and I can't do it myself the way I'm physically at the moment. So I'm just saying, think about it from your heart, what matters. Our kids matter, not only just my kids, but the kids who are going here today. It really does matter, and it really does matter that we get to vote on something straight up, and that we don't have to have a shield there. That's all I got, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to give some comments, or? Yeah.
I'm Dawn Moran, live on Lebanon Hill Road, been in Woodstock for 24 years. My husband's been in here over 50, if that makes me more credible. My kids aren't even in our school system anymore. But when they started in our school system, it was vastly different, and I'll reiterate a lot of good points that Mrs. Fox said. Our school system had so many more services and more staff to help support the kids the way they deserve to be supported. Right now, we have shared TAs in kindergarten. If any of you have children or grandchildren, and you've ever tried to host a birthday party for 15 or 25-year-olds, you know how crazy that is. There are times when our kindergarten teachers are alone in a classroom with almost 20 kids trying to do the best job they can. And do they do the best they can? Absolutely. But should they have to have it that way? Those children are being shortchanged because there aren't enough people in there to give them the attention they deserve. Children, they're happy to be in this building with the lights on. They're happy to be in the other building with the lights on. But they're not little robots. They don't just come in and sit there and listen to what you say and then do what you ask them to do. They are little tiny humans who make choices that don't always make sense, or don't have a big attention span, or sometimes they come to school sad or upset or even excited about something and they want to talk to their teacher about it. If we don't have enough staff, how can you take the time to give that child that attention? Part of their schooling is not just reading and math. Part of it is emotional connection. Part of it is being seen, being acknowledged, and being supported. Sometimes kids just need that hug. Sometimes kids need that 10 minutes talking to you by themselves, but you can't give it to them if you're in a huge classroom full of kids who are all waiting for something. When I started volunteering in 2007, when my son was in kindergarten, every classroom had a TA, and some of them had multiple TAs because you had kids who had services, so you had one-on-ones. It was much easier to work that than it is now, and our teachers are amazing. I have seen some incredible results from the people in our school system, from pre-K all the way up to 8th grade, because that's where I've been substituting since 2007. And I know they love the kids. They want them to succeed. And you know, we have to give to the future generation as an investment for what this town is, we hope this town is going to be and what it will remain. We can't have a school system that can't give students what they need and have people want to move to this town. We can't have kids getting shortchanged from the genius that they possess because we can't provide what they need. Also, in addition, I wanted to point out that from my understanding, when Prop 46 was in effect, if we ever did have a budget that we citizens didn't agree with because we thought actually it should be more, Prop 46 hamstrings us because if we vote no, we don't like this budget, they can't come back with a higher number. They have to come back with a lower number. So we keep giving ourselves more and more problems by having to cut and cut on top of those cuts. So Prop 46, while it was a great idea at the time when it was instituted, doesn't keep up with today's needs. And then I also trust the citizens of the town to be able to look at the budget that's presented and decide whether they want to approve it or not. I don't think by not having Prop 46 that we suddenly have, you know, left the floodgates open and we're gonna be spending millions of dollars more than we wanted and everybody is gonna be paying, you know, thousands of dollars more in taxes every year. Taxes are gonna go up every year. We have the ability to control it by voting no if we don't like the budget amount presented. Okay. One last thing I wanted to say is our school system has cut many things over the years. I don't think it's right that we don't have a librarian in either school. I don't think it's right that we've cut a lot of the supplemental things that are fun and interesting for students. They don't go on class trips very much. A lot of the things we used to do, like going on the Freedom Trail trip in 5th grade, those types of things, they don't do those anymore, and they haven't done them for years. You know, if you think back to when you were a kid, did you like just sitting there doing worksheets all day? You know, no, you want those extra fun things that reinforce the learning. So, you know, a lot of people, if they don't have kids in the school system, it doesn't seem like that important of a need, but it really is. Every kid deserves to have a great education with all the supporting factors they need so that they can be successful. It's only going to come back in good ways to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who hasn't spoken? Don't see any hands raised. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, hopefully you're on.
My name's David Hancock. I live on Brickyard Road. I've lived here for all my life. And past 30 years, I've seen a lot of people move into this town. And they don't fit. They try to make Woodstock what they want. Woodstock's a farming community. The schools have not always been great. Not always been. They weren't good when I was in school. They pushed me right through school. If it wasn't for my parents, I wouldn't have been where I am today, as far as business. Both of my parents were teachers. My mother taught in a one-room schoolroom in 1930. She taught until she was 77 years old because she liked it. Not because she wanted to get paid, because her highest pay, I believe, was $6,000 a year. She was a qualified teacher. She, through me, she developed the learning disability programs in Massachusetts for dyslexic kids. The guinea pig, right here. She went to many schools to learn, and then once she learned, she went to many schools at night to teach other teachers how to teach dyslexic kids. And my father taught Nichols for years. He taught Bartlett for years, and he taught 32 years at Tantascwa. And he was very well educated. My mother was a Democrat, my father was a Republican. We had dinner every night at the table, and I listened, and we knew, growing up as kids, what was going on in town. And I think that's missing with a lot of kids and families today. And I hear a lot of people crying in this town about poor kids. They don't get this, they don't get that. All these people crying about their kids, I'll guarantee they all got an Apple phone. At what age? They got a tablet, a computer. You know, I think Woodstock is raising a bunch of spoiled brats, and I don't want to offend anybody.
No.
And this is my personal opinion.
You offended me, yes.
And I'm here to speak, and if you don't like it, talk to me afterwards. But Woodstock isn't the same, and I realize towns grow. But, you know, our Constitution was put, how many years ago? Any scholars here? Because I sure wasn't taught. Well, the Constitution was put in place to run the country. Well, that's what Proposition 47 was put in place to help Woodstock not spend too much money. And you know, every time it came up to vote, both my parents would explain and talk about it, and they'd vote to keep it because they thought it was important. And I think it's important to
the wish list, that's what my father used to call it. The teachers would get the instruction from the superintendent. This is the only way he was. I don't know if Woodstock does that. But the wish list of what we want. We want a new desk. We want this, we want this, we want this. And then you bring that to the Board of Education, they put it in their budget. Well, those are the first things to be cut. So I don't like politics. I don't like getting involved. I don't like standing up here saying my piece. But I just retired 5-6 years ago. And, you know, I ran a good business, and I've done a lot of work for a lot of people in town. I never volunteered for the Woodstock Fire Department, but anybody on the Woodstock volunteer knows that a lot of the trucks in this town I have painted or repaired at a very reasonable cost for the fire department. But, you know, the fire department and, you know, volunteers, God bless them. They've saved me more than once. But after 9/11, the federal government gave a lot of money away to the fire departments. But the fire departments had to train the people, I do believe, they have to train their people in order to keep this money going to the fire departments. And now the government, not giving away too much money anymore, and we still need that training. So the budget in the fire department's going up and up and up. And people are saying the ambulance, oh my God, the ambulance, you know, we won't get any ambulance service in this town. I mean, when they brought me at 2:30 in the morning, the ambulance came from Oxford. Took them a half an hour to get to my place. Anybody know where I live? Out in the woods. They had a hard time finding me. They got there, and I'm still alive because of them, you know. And there was one volunteer from Woodstock that was there before them that came in, and you know, he evaluated me. But I think this town's changed so much, and all the people like me that live in this town, and a lot of people that are older than I am that couldn't make it to this meeting, or can't drive at night, for a lot of reasons, don't vote. There's not enough information put out before the vote. There's not enough information put out about the budget. So people don't get informed the way they used to. People rely on social media and not the newspaper anymore. And a lot of us just can't afford it. You know, some people say, oh, gee, you know, I don't know, I can't afford that. You know, I can't. I'm building a house. I can't afford a foundation. I can't afford a $33,000 foundation. So I'm going to put it on cement piers, you know. I make cuts. I don't drive a new car. I drive an old piece of crap that I work on almost daily basis. When you complain about the town not having money, it just goes up my butt sideways, because it's just too much being asked around, I think, especially in the schools. The kids today, they learn more about anything on their phones. My own grandson walks around with a phone in his pocket, with his earbuds in, talking, doing his homework. You know, we never had screens like that in school to teach your kids, you know. Never had, I want to think of the proper initials. I heard somebody, what was teacher's assistants called? TA, I guess, right? Never had those. You know, if a person can't teach 20 kids in a class, I think they ought to go back to school and learn how to teach a little bit better. And if they want to teach as assistants, well, my opinion, let that come out of their salary. You know? And I think there's a lot of waste, and it's just, you know, I could go on with the highway department, I could, you know, but it's, I think that if you look at yourself really deeply and say, you know, geez, can I afford this? Well, yeah, I can afford it, you know, I got a good job. I heard somebody saying they make $100,000 a year. I never made over $50,000 a year in my life, and I worked my butt off 24 hours. Well, it seemed like 24 hours a day, but 20 hours. You know, and a lot of people, how are we going to get this money? I was approached tonight, hey, you do any work anymore? No, I don't. I haven't got a building. But I'm thinking of building one so I can get extra money to pay my bills. Because I make cuts. Every week I make cuts. I have to. I don't have electricity. I have to buy gas for a generator. I have propane for heat. So, you know, it's not easy for everybody. And I drive around town and I see these $400,000, $1,000 houses, and they're mowing their lawns with a Kubota tractor that, you know, we used to, or an old farm haul that, you know, used to plow fields with. It just doesn't make sense to me. A lot of things don't, but Proposition 46 was put in place. And what should have happened, and I agree, maybe it doesn't need to be looked at, okay? I agree with that. But why didn't we do that beforehand? Why did we just go in and kill it? Everybody was, this is time and time. I believe last time it was tried to be appealed. Proposition 46 was voted on 4 times. Costing the taxpayers a lot of money. It was 4 votes, and they didn't repeal it. So, you know, it's either do or die, and it shouldn't be that way. We should get together and try to make it work. You know, make Proposition 46 work. If you don't like it, let's change it, not get rid of it. Because we have to have some kind of spending cap. We really do. Because a lot of our budget is voted on, and it is not even known how much money we're going to get from the state for this cut in the next year. So it's you know, there's a lot of things to think about. And I'm sorry if I insulted anybody, but freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody that hasn't spoken yet that wants to, Roger? Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
2/3 vote.
2/3 vote? Okay. We're gonna have there's been a motion to adjourn. It's been made and seconded. So we'll call the vote. All in favor, raise your hands, please. Okay, I don't think we have 2/3, so I think the motion fails. Okay. Somebody who hasn't spoken, did somebody else raise their hand in the back?
I'd like to make a motion to cap the comments to 2 minutes a speaker.
Okay, well, that's not fair for somebody who had 10 minutes when they got the whole. I think what we're gonna ask is that anybody that speaks, be sure to speak into the microphone, because some of the people at home apparently can't hear the comments. Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Melissa Jameson. I'm sorry, a little bit nervous. I grew up not in Woodstock, but I felt like I grew up in Woodstock. My mother's family was from Woodstock and spent a lot of time with her. She lived off of, my grand lived off of Snetsett Road. My uncles all live in the Bungie area. When I was little, Woodstock always felt like home. I would go to my grand's house. We'd play in the neighborhood. So many years later, moving here myself, I grew up in Putnam. I feel at home. I know I might not be from here, but I feel like I'm from here. I remember going to my uncle's house, who was a volunteer firefighter, and we could be having dinner, and all of a sudden the CV would come on, and he'd be out. Something was happening in town. He needed help, and he did that. And my father spent a lot of time in politics. My mom volunteered and served on a lot of boards, and I try to do the same for my town. I try to help in whatever way I can to try to make my town better, because that's the values that I have. I'm lucky that I have a good job, I teach. Do I wanna pay more in taxes? Probably not. But do I see a value in it? I really do. All the time my uncle spent responding as a volunteer, helping other people, that's because the town helps pay for those fire departments that he then in turn volunteered for. He's had emergencies that has happened, or other family members have, and they've gotten help because we have the EMS services. I'm really worried that with Prop 46, some of these things are really gonna suffer. And I really don't want that to happen. I mean, I love the schools, and some of you have seen me posting, and you know I love the schools. But I'm worried about them too. I don't want our town to fall apart. And I feel like the Prop 46 really, really is something that I worry about. I'm willing to pay more. I'm willing to maybe not stop at Dunkin' Donuts once a week so that I can pay the increase in my taxes. That's important to me. I hope it's important to everybody. So I'm gonna vote to reject 46 because I see a value, and I think our selectmen and our Board of Finance and our Board of Ed have done a really great job presenting a budget that's really not excessive. It's kind of keeping things just where they are, and they've got a nice plan for over time, making things better, and that's what I want. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who hasn't spoken? Anybody who has spoken, I'd like to speak in. Maggie?
No, I think I actually wanted to build off of something that Mr. Hancock had brought up. I'm very pro-education, from the Board of Ed, but this evening's discussion has pretty much seemed to be monopolized by education. And I think we're overlooking some of the town, or the general government side of it. And Mr. Hancock had brought up the fire service, as well as the ambulance. And yes, we're going to have ambulance service. The Board of Selectmen had made it pretty clear that we will have that. And I think the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen made it clear that it's much less expensive for us to be able to keep it in-house, so to speak, to keep the Woodstock ambulance than it is to contract out. But it actually was the Woodstock ambulance and our volunteer fire departments that came and said we need to go to 24/7 personnel for the ambulance. I know at least a couple of the volunteer fire departments had put out fact sheets on response times when it was just I guess considered part-time, or just volunteer, and use that data to prove their point about why they needed it. They did take from their own savings account to pay for the increase so they could prove that they needed it, so they could provide the data to show the difference in response times. Also, through some of the informational meetings that I attended and was part of, some of the volunteer fire department members did say that volunteers are down, that the town could be having to consider in the future some sort of a hybrid paid fire personnel in addition to paid ambulance personnel. I'd like the town to have a chance to study that or to look at that rather than do what happened last time where they had to transfer the money quickly to show this. What I also like about it is not only just having that paid, knowing that 24/7 can continue, but I like that it hasn't been taken from the other town general government departments. I like that it hasn't been taken from the highway department, the libraries, the town hall, the recreation department, and other services that we have that may have been zeroed out or their funding reduced. And if we did have Proposition 46 in place, I know that the boards had presented somewhat what that would look like and where that money would have to come from. I just don't want us to I don't want us to overlook that side of it, because while I certainly pro-education, there's other services in town that I think need to be adequately funded and given a chance to look at what the future's gonna be as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Anybody else? Hasn't spoken? Let me give you another chance first.
I'll be real quick. I appreciate people are speaking from their heart and from what they believe. I think that if folks are in a rough state financially, I think that that's what first and foremost we need to fix and find a way that taxation takes that into account, and folks who are having a real struggle, that we support them. That's the safety net. And that's something that should be, I believe, has already been started, those discussions on how we can do that. I guess I'm not a good fit for Woodstock. That's what I'm hearing. But I would just say, one of my favorite authors is Octavia Butler. And one of her quotes is, the only lasting truth is change. Things are changing. We can like it, we can not like it. We can like iPhones or not like iPhones. We can battle against them, or we can make them into a tool that helps our kids educate themselves and learn about the world. So my kids are not spoiled by any means, but I do take some of that seriously, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping out at it at occasion when I hear it. But I think it's important, and I think it's important that we know that everybody who's here tonight, I doubt anybody's position has changed, but I appreciate the fact that you guys are here, because this is really what makes a democracy important, and so thank you for that. That's all I got this time.
Thank you. Sam, did you want to make that?
I just have a short little comment to make. When I moved here to Woodstock, I was a stay-at-home mom. My husband worked full-time. I was a stay-at-home mom. I have 3 children. 2 are still living at home. 1 is grown and not living here in Woodstock. I said before that my daughter has special needs. We spend a lot of time at Boston Children's Hospital, a lot of time, more time than I would like to. When I realized that our income was not covering what we were paying out, I had to get a job. I had to bring in more income. People keep saying, you know, everything's expensive, everybody has to make cuts, right? And we did, in my family, we had to make cuts. We're still having to make cuts. I'm still having to, my husband works technically 3 jobs. I work a job, right? But if you took Prop 46 and applied that logic to my family, it wouldn't matter how much money we brought in. When we got that hole in the roof, we couldn't spend the money to fix it. When we got that, you know, our driveway started falling apart, we couldn't use the money to fix it. So I understand, you know, I've heard some people talking about how we need to find other ways of bringing money in. And I agree with that. But the bottom line is, even if we have it, Prop 46 is not going to let us spend it on the things that we need to spend it on. So that's, you know, like I said, when our budget was stretched, I had to bring in more money, right? I think it's great that your mom was able to help you when you needed it, right? We're taking kids in our school, and I don't mean to go back to the school, but we're taking kids and we're saying, you're on your own. That's what we're telling them, right? So my daughter's going into high school next year. She'll be at the academy. And because of, I know we've talked in the past about the state and what their regulations are about the high school, and so the budget to the high school and all of that stuff, we don't worry that things are going to be funded at the high school. I will continue to substitute at the elementary school. I will continue to take on more and more and more hours. And the other thought that I had is, just in general, is that a lot of people have been coming up and saying, you know, I'm retired, right? I'm a ways away from retiring, although closer every day, right? I have 2 parents who are in their 80s that I have to take care of. And I do take care of them. So my parents, my own children, my own family, and my community, right? We have people who are retiring, but you have to understand that as part of being able to keep our town funded, we have to get new people in who are going to be able to pay taxes and be able to put that revenue into our town. So you need to be able to get those people into Woodstock. And I know people are saying, well, you know, people are still saying how great Woodstock schools are. They're not saying it as much as they used to. They're not. And our schools are amazing. But people are not saying, I want to move to Woodstock because they have great schools. They're saying, Woodstock has pretty good schools. But that's not what's going to attract. And you do need to have something to attract people here. If you don't have people moving to Woodstock, where are you going to get that tax revenue if you don't have new people moving in? I don't know. I would like to know. You know, people don't want this to become an industrial town. You know, you don't want to have businesses coming in. We don't want a Walmart, you know, across from the academy. I get that, right? But so what are we going to do to bring in revenue? And when we have it, what are we going to do to spend it if we still have Prop 46? So, and people keep saying, you know, well, give me an you know, let's talk about it. I think it's been talked about, but I still haven't heard any ideas come up that would be sort of a middle of the road. I haven't heard anybody, I mean, I wasn't at the meeting yesterday. I don't know. There are some meetings I haven't been to, but I still haven't heard anybody present a middle of the road idea for what we can do. So if somebody wants to do that, we can do that, but, you know, I think, yeah, the town is changing, but that's what towns do. They change. And you have to get more people in here to help support the people who are retiring and who are at that point in their life where they should be able to enjoy things. So, and, you know, 170, you know, 400 and whatever $1,000 houses, that's certainly not us. Definitely not us. I got my mom-mobile out there. You know, we have a car that my husband has to put air in the tire every night, every day before he goes to work. That husband that works 3 jobs has to put air in that tire every single day. You know, so we do. We have to cut. We all have to cut. But that's what we're doing. But at some point, you have to bring in more income.
Thank you. Anybody else want to make a comment? John?
I'll try and talk slow and clear. That's not my normal speech. I need to ask Jay a question. Jay, if Proposition 46 does get passed, does that affect this year's budget coming up?
Next year.
Pardon me?
Next year.
So the 2024 to 25?
Am I correct, 22, 23, or?
No,
Unless the budget fails.
24,
Right.
25.
If the budget fails and is voted on and approved after Prop 46, then it could change.
Okay, so it still, if it failed and Proposition 46 was passed, then it would have to abide by 46 rules. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I came to this night meeting not knowing how I felt about the situation. I've been here, I'm a newcomer, I moved in 75. And I listened to everybody's speech, and they spoke from the heart, and they spoke how they feel. Some more elegant than others. But I believe what they were telling me. You spoke about the fact that you would not allow the increase in from 70 to 75 to affect our mill rate, our town.
John, talk into the microphone.
Okay, that's true. Thank you. Unfortunately, he might not be here 6 years from now. And they might say, oh, we didn't make that promise, we're gonna go to 75. At the last, when Proposition 46 was overturned, more people voted to amend it than to repeal it. And that happened because of the way the questions were set up. Now, clearly, Proposition 46 is not working, and it cannot work this year. So I'm gonna vote no. I'm not gonna reinstate Proposition 46. But I ask those people who really feel that Proposition 46 is important, is don't come back with the same Proposition 46 that's been here. We know it's not working. If you want to come back with a new, modified, updated Proposition 46. Then we can vote on it, because right now, all we hear is that, we know it's not working, but there's no adjustments to it. This meeting should have been how to adjust 46 so it does work if you want to reinstate it. So that's what I would say. Come back with a new and improved Proposition 46, and I will support you. But right now, under these circumstances, I'm going to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Judy?
Can I talk?
Yes, you can. You want it?
I do.
Just give us your name and.
Judy Walter. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I think this is probably one of the best town meetings I have seen in a very, very long time. And it's an inspiration to know that we can get together and do this. For a very long time, we've had 5 people show up and pass a $15 million budget. And it's great. It truly is a wonderful place to live. And I'm gonna find an article that Tom Lasky, who's no longer with us, wrote a long time ago in The Observer. And it talks about what a great town we have. And things change, people move in. I've been here only since I was 5, lived at the town farm, and it changes, but you need to slow down and you need to look around and you need to enjoy what we have here. And I just want to say that. And I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. There you go.
Judy, you hijacked the meeting for us. Thank you, everybody.